bowl, we want to have a nice clean surface. Have it nice and laid out. Have that nice piece of clay already wedged and ready to go. And you're going to put it down right in the center of your wheel. As such, make sure you got that towel to wrap around your legs, because as beginners, we are very messy throwers. I'm going to tuck in my sweatshirt so I don't get anything dirty. Rolling my sleeves up. I've got my body close to the wheel, my elbows are tucked in my thighs, and my hands are then immersed in water completely. Before I begin, I turn my wheel to a nice, little bit higher than medium speed. Get my hands around the clay, and I'm going to start to cone the clay upward. So as I'm coning the clay upward, I'm also compressing it inward so it doesn't rip off the wheel. When I get to the tip of the coning, the benefit of coning is to get that unevenness to a small area of the clay. I'm going to use my thumbs, and I'm pushing back down. And just like before, there's all this like messy clay down at the base. So I want to use the side of my finger because I want to keep the workspace of my clay really nice and clean. And so for me, I always teach my beginners to center their clay like a mushroom, a nice mushroom shape. So from that top view, you can't really see it, but from the side view, you can. I'm tucking that pinky underneath the clay, thumbs over the top. My hand is in a nice C formation on both sides. So the full circumference of the clay is covered, right? So when I know I'm centered, my hands are no longer moving when I touch it. Does that look like I'm centered? Am I ready to go? Thank you, Darius. Yes, I'm ready. So from here, so the technique that I've shown in the past is to take tucking your elbows into your body and to take your thumbs and go straight down. Well, some of you guys are getting like wobbly thumbs when you do that. So the next technique that I'm gonna describe or show you how to do, and this is the technique that I use personally, is to hold your hand in that nice butterfly shape, so your least dominant hand on the exterior, with your pointer finger and middle finger. No, I'm totally lying. Your pointer finger is underneath, okay? You're gonna put your pointer finger is underneath, and then your middle and ring finger at the top. So this might feel awkward to you, but this is really an important way to do that, because you want that pointer finger to be your guide into feeling the clay as you open. So from here, I'm gonna have my thumbs touching each other, my body is tucked into itself, and so I'm going to open like this instead. So for those of you who've been struggling with the opening, try this way instead, okay? So the difference between throwing a mug versus a bowl is now when I open the clay, where I'm gonna take my hand and squeeze outward, okay? I'm not just going straight out like a 90-degree angle. I'm gonna pull out, but I'm gonna apply less pressure as I work my way outward, so I get that nice curvilinear shape. Does everybody got me on that? Yeah, okay, good. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water. And you can see I don't use a lot of water here, just a little bit. So now I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna create that nice curvilinear shape as I work outward. And it's a little bit pointier than I wish. So I'm gonna come in here and just reassert that nice curve. So right now I'm creating a nice half sphere shape that's ideal again for soup and ice cream, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm gonna clean and compress. So this is important. Compression is a very important practice in ceramics, and that is where you go from the outer edge and you push inward as you throw. And when you do that, because what happens is the clay particles are spinning in a circle. And so if they're not compressed, if all of those particles are not lined up like soldiers in a line or whatnot, they will, as the piece dries, they start to unwind. And when they unwind, clay particles can go in different directions. And what we want them to do is to go in the same direction so that you don't receive S-cracks. And so compression is very, very important. Another good way to do receive nice compression for throwing is to take your metal smooth rib, put it on an angle, and compress into the bottom of your pot. As you can see that I'm just doing it here, okay? Get it nice and compressed. And already, some of you might say, oh, I made a bowl, I'm done. But this still needs to be thrown. I've got a lot of clay still down at the base, so promise me that nobody stops throwing at this phase. A lot of people do, and they end up basically making these like premature little bowls. So what we want to do is we want to get this nice, beautiful form to push with our hands that clay underneath on the side up into the wall. So what's really tricky here is that because we've got this nice curve, we don't want to lose that curve. To not lose that curve, I've got to push my hand on the outside as I start to do my first pool and not apply a lot of pressure with the inside. And then as I get higher above the curve, then I can start to use pressure with my inside hand. Okay? So you can see now that my shape of my bowl has kind of changed a little bit, but I'm going to be able to go back in and reassert that form. But what I want to do first is to get that weight out. And so from the way that we create bowls is that your hands are no longer going to stay side by side. To create that nice curvilinear form, I'm now going to separate my hands. My inside hand is going to be lower, and my outside hand is going to be higher so that I can push out and then push back in to get that nice curve. So watch me as I do that. So I'm pushing out with my inside hand, and with my inside hand, my outside hand is up higher, and I get that beautiful, nice curved shape. And then I'm going to reassert that with the inside, and then this bowl is done. It's a beauty. Coming in again with that little chamois. And so it's really important also, craftsmanship is everything with these things. Coming in and doing these little tiny accents are really beneficial. So I've got my plastic chamois, just a piece of plastic, I think is ideal. I don't like using leather chamois, they are too heavy. And I can get that nice beautiful lip on the side of my form, just like our throne. So this is going to be our indicator for trimming. So we're going to take our wooden undercutting tool, holding it like a pencil. Okay, you can see I'm holding it. And just like when we trim, we're going to reassert how we're holding that with our least dominant hand, leaning down into my body, and I'm going to cut into the side of the shape and cut away this ring of excess clay. Using my wire tool, I'm going to clean that off. Nice and clean. I'm going to add just a little bit of water here because that's going to lift my piece up and off the bat or off the wheel head if that's what you're throwing on. Sliding across one time. So before you do it your second time, take that excess clay off. So if you are throwing a lot, all this little extra clay adds up. So put that in your reuse pile and then come in for your second sweep. And then again, using your hands in like a V shape, right? I'm going to just do a little bit of a twist, lift this up, and then it's ready to be moved onto my board for trimming after it sets up. So instead of taking paper towels and all sorts of things to this, the first thing I'm going to do is use one of my ribs to scrape off that excess clay, put this in my reuse pile, keeping my wheel spinning. I'm then going to clean off my wheel head. So just like when I started, I'm finishing in the same place, and then I'm ready to throw another form.